Monsters again. How are you all doing? Time for another Dansmonsters podcast. Excuse me, I am one brew time, hang on. That is a damn fine cup of coffee. Oh, my coffee, not sponsored by the way, is from blackcoffeeworship.co.uk. Black metal coffee. I would highly recommend it. Excellent. Check them out. Okay, what am I going to talk about today? Well, I want to talk a bit about art, and then I'm going to talk about the House of Hammer magazine, not the films, the magazine. And then at the end, you'll get a review of the Festering, the Library of Doom reviews. The Festering by Guy N. Smith. It's a quite vomiting, juicing book, but wonderful at the same time because it's Guy N. Smith. Okay, so quick shout out on the style factor of my art. I think I finally, sounds really stupid, sussed out my style many years in that I've got really happy with. And I'm going to put more of this on my YouTube channel. So if you check out the Monster Bomb Club on YouTube, you'll have a see about that in the coming weeks. I know it sounds really stupid, but I've got so much art. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, listen, this is a folder full of drawings that I've done over the past couple of years. I don't know what to do with them. They're just sat there gathering dust. So I'm going to be putting them on either eBay or my Ko-Fi store for cheap, like £2 each, plus postage, obviously, for you to all grab. Because I don't know what to do with them. I either usually burn them all or shove them in the recycling. So check it out, because they're just sat there doing nothing, and I'd rather they went to a good home and try and get my money back on the paper and the ink that I've used. So do have a look. I really struggled for a long time deciding how I should draw and tried to copy a lot of other people, and you can probably see that in my work sometimes. But I think I may have just sussed out what I need to do. It just seemed to drop. So hopefully, if you have a look at the YouTube, and you'll also be able to look at it on my Substack. I've started a Substack now, which is Dansmonsters at dansmonsters.substack.com. Of course, I've started a Substack. Who hasn't got a Substack now? But because I'm getting sick to death of the terrible, terrible social media world of face crook and Insta crap, I just thought I need to do something else. I will post some stuff on Insta crap, but like I say, I'll put the links in the description so you can go and have a look. I update, so you don't have to sign up to Substack, by the way. You just have to follow like anything else, so you don't need the app. They try and persuade you to have the app on your phone, but you don't need it. So yeah, have a look at that. I think it's time to get on with the House of Hammer, shall we? Let's put some music on and have a look. Oh no, I'll tell you what I forgot to mention. So don't forget you can check my website, dansmonsters.com. Check out the Substack, dansmonsters.substack.com. The YouTube is YouTube/The Monster Bomb Club. And obviously on my website has the links to the Ko-Fi store. And also there's the Library of Doom website, which I'm going to sort of put all up on the Substack, I believe. But have a look. I'll put all the links in the description. But right now, I can hear some information from the past of how Dansmonsters did create these things he does. How? What influenced him? Let's have a find out about the House of Hammer. So, back in the day, there were no magazines concerning horror movies in the UK, particularly. You could get the American Horror Comics and the occasional Warren magazine like Vampirella, and very rarely Famous Monsters of Filmland. The day my brother picked up a copy of House of Hammer magazine was a day to behold. Here was a magazine of all those films I used to watch on the BBC Two on a Friday night. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday. Anyway, the double bills with all the photos of the films, including films we hadn't seen, and comic strips based on those films. What's not to like? Big, garish, bright, wonderful artwork on the covers, black and white photos inside. We watched all the films on black and white, portable in the corner of our bedroom, so colour wasn't a concern, even it being originally in Technicolor. Comic strips of films we'd not yet seen, some even better than the film. Dracula Prince of Darkness, which was illustrated by the great John Bolton, was better than the film. I remember it just was. The comic strip's really gory and action-packed, and although I love Dracula Prince of Darkness, I mean, Christopher Lee doesn't say anything in it, and he plays a great Dracula, but it's a bit of a cheaper film and not as good. Anyway, we loved the magazine, and my brother, who was 3 years older than me, collected them all and often berated me for not reading them properly, not handling them careful enough, and would often take them off me before I even had the chance to finish them. And he still does. Even at our young age, so I was about 7, my brother would be about 10, my parents always used to let us watch these double bills on BBC Two. They were generally a Hammer movie and an older black and white horror movie from the 1950s, like Night of the Demon. And I'm going to do a whole episode on Night of the Demon because I love that film. So House of Hammer magazine was a perfect companion for us. You could sit there looking at it whilst watching the film. So it was originally published in 1976 and was the brainchild of British comic genius Des Skin. Look him up, amazing guy. It was a combination of film articles and an adaptation of Hammer horror movies, and also had a short backup strip called Van Helsing's Tales of Terror, very much in the sort of Tales from the Crypt Warren magazine style. A majority of the covers were illustrated by a much-missed spectacular artist called Brian Lewis. He also did some of the adaptation work, and a favourite of mine of his was the Quatermass Experiment. Another example that I read this before I saw the movie, and the way he depicted the creature at the end of Quatermass Experiment, no spoilers, was this bubbling mass of tentacles and pustules and dripping flesh, which was absolutely spectacular. So you can imagine my disappointment when the little rubber monster appeared at the end of the original movie. I love that movie as well, I hasten to add. And the interior art was carried out by some of the greats of British comic art who went on to do bigger and better things. John Bolton, of course, as I said, he did Prince of Darkness, but he also did a spectacular version of Curse of the Werewolf, which, honestly, those frames, you'd have them put on your wall. Also, you had Brian Bolland did some work in there, and the first major work by artist David Lloyd of V for Vendetta, who adapted Quatermass 2. On a side note, we did meet him, David Lloyd, many years later at a comic convention in the Lake District, and over quite a few drinks, my brother asked him if he would draw Brian Donlevy, the actor who played Quatermass. Unfortunately, we did get very, very drunk, and we had awful hangovers the next day and never got round to asking him. We've never seen him since, although he does send me an email every year saying happy birthday. Isn't that nice? Anyway, the movies that they adapted were just outstanding. You had Dracula, you had Quatermass, you had Vampire Circus, which didn't appear on TV very often, Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, Captain Kronos. And then the first few issues continued the story of Captain Kronos, which is always a particular favourite of my brother's. Just bought the brand new Blu-ray set. And they also continued the story of Father Shandor, which he was the priest from the Prince of Darkness movie. And then Des Skin, who would go on to create the Wonderful Warrior magazine, would move Father Shandor to the Warrior magazine, and he was a bit of like a sword-wielding demon killer, very much, and I'm only thinking of this now as I'm recording this, in the Hellboy vein. I'd never thought of that. I'll put some links anyway in the description. They also had some wonderful articles and interviews with Hammer stalwarts, directors, etc., and makeup guys, and they even at one point jumped on the Star Wars bandwagon for one issue. Now, this being the only magazine you could find dedicated to horror, it was just a must-buy for us. Along with Starburst, which was another of Des Skin's creations, and Starburst magazine was a sci-fi fantasy. It had a touch of horror, but it was all news articles, interviews, etc., and reviews, not any of the comic strips. But Starburst is still going today. House of Hammer changed its name 4 times, apparently, for commercial reasons, which always bemused me at the time. So it was always under the HOH abbreviation, if that's the right way to say that, or I can't think. Anyway, it always was HOH. So originally House of Hammer, then Hammer House of Horror, then Hammer's Halls of Horror, and even eventually Halls of Horror. Hang on, I need a drink. It ran initially for 24 issues, until the new publisher, W.H. Allen, closed its magazine publishing department altogether, and it just went away. It had disappointing sales and not much to cover, as a Hammer studio had sort of ceased to exist and wasn't making anything more, so it sort of just stopped. It came back for a further 12 issues through Deskin's Quality Communications, which was what Warrior came under, but it then focused more on general horror rather than Hammer, because they'd run out of Hammer stuff to do, as they were not producing any kind of films anymore. I managed to save a few of the original copies, tattered and torn as they are, and for some reason my brother decided to put them in a ring binder, so they've got holes punched in them. So he may have got on to me about reading them properly, but at least he didn't put bloody holes in them. No. And I still look back at these magazines and how good they were and how ahead of the time. Until the underground horror zine started in the sort of 90s, with the rise of things like Shock Express and Sam Hain, there were no British horror magazines after House of Hammer. You had Fangoria that would appear occasionally. And I'm sure these must have influenced these Shock Express, Sam Hain, etc. And Dark Side, which is still going today, is probably its successor of House of Hammer. The cover, the layout, and the general approach of it is very similar to how House of Hammer magazine read, but obviously without the comic strips. So it is no more, which is unfortunate. You can pick them up on eBay relatively cheap. I would really recommend getting hold of them, but there was such a big influence for myself and my brother. You've got to get hold. Well, I think that's a bit of a... I'll put some links, but that's a bit of a potted history of my experience with House of Hammer magazine. I mean, you could talk about the House of Hammer studios all day, and all the back catalogue and all the things that they did and could have done. So, yeah, try and get some copies if you can do. It's absolutely fantastic. Right, well, that's me talking about the House of Hammer. Let's go on to a Library of Doom review, shall we? Oh, cue the music! It's Dansmonsters here with the Library of Doom. Check out my website, dansmonsters.com. Check out the blog, libraryofdoom.medium.com, for all the reviews. What we're going to do today, we're going to do the Festering by all-time pulp horror favourite British author Guy N. Smith. It's a classic. I mean, if you look on the website, you'll be able to see the cover. Published in 1989 by Arrow Books in the UK. Set to yet again in Smith's beloved Welsh countryside. The novel starts with an instant sick bag wallop in medieval times as a chap returns to his village dripping with disease, boils, pus and melting flesh. Everyone is horrified and they try to throw him out of the place. His disease eventually kills him, swelled eyes, mouth leaking God knows what, and he's buried deep in the ground by the villagers who think it is a curse from the devil, of course. Cut to the modern day. Oh, well, 1989 anyway. And a couple, Holly and Mike, have moved from the city to the countryside. As seems the norm for a Smith book, there's about a 10 to 15 year or so age gap between the couple. Also, quite a number of main male characters in Smith's book seem to either smoke a pipe or have a writing job, not unlike Smith himself. Anyway, they buy a dilapidated cottage with a chunk of land. The plumbing is completely broken, so they must dig a well in the garden. However, they dig a hole right over the diseased body from back in medieval times. A foul stench emits from the hole and the disease is released again, first infecting one of the workers digging the hole. Needless to say, the infection spreads and chaos reigns in the quiet village. The disease not only covers the body in boils and causing the leaking of pus and slime from everywhere, it also ramps up your violent and sexual urges. The victims end up wreaking havoc and turning into toxic, disease-ridden creatures unable to control themselves. It's a simple story that gently leads us into a tale of tension, then ramps up the horror in a confined environment, and it thunders along with all the sorts of pestilence and horror and action as it reaches its grim and particularly bleak ending. This is a wonderfully trashy, over-the-top, gory, exploitative pulp horror at its best even. Smith knows exactly what he's doing here. He's on top form. He certainly revels in the descriptions of festering infected, their weeping slimy bodies, various fluids leaking from the poor victims' eyes, ears, mouths, other orifices, and of course the various pustules that have covered their bodies. Wonderfully disgusting, reminiscent of the gloopy body horror of the movie Street Trash from the 80s. And he revels in the description of the destruction of the bodies of the diseased victims. It's been mentioned a few times that this book was written in the aftermath of the AIDS crisis, so the subject of unknown rapidly contagious diseases was still on everyone's mind. Smith even mentions it a couple of times in the novel through newspaper readings and stuff. Whether or not he had a mind in it when he was writing, we will never know. It also throws around, as is the wont with Smith's book, a bit of casual misogyny that some may find a bit offensive. I'm not defending it, I'm just warning everybody. And I'm not excusing the time it was written. It was just a different time and stuff, so apologies if anybody finds that offensive. If you like your horror, though, with all its wonderful over-the-top pulp characters and outrageously gory scenes, I can't recommend this enough. It's probably one of Smith's finest works. It's pretty hard to find the print version these days. No copies I could find on eBay as of writing this. Obviously, you can read it digitally. The cover that I've got on my website, I'm not even too sure who the artist is, but there is another cover by the wonderful artist Les Edwards. But apparently it was rejected for being too extreme. And I think they missed a trick. You can actually buy the original artwork off Les Edwards from his website. Guy Smith sadly passed away in 2020, and a memorial convention was organised by his daughter. And you can read about it on the Guy Smith website, Facebook page even. If you look on my blog, you'll also see there's some brilliant cover images from RVG Fanatic remembering Guy Smith. There's a link in it there. Anyway, there you go. Try and find a copy if you can do. Certainly read it digitally. It's pretty vomitive and juicy. Enjoy! Well, that's it for another Dan's Monster Pod. Hope you enjoyed listening to my rambles of nonsense. I'll be posting another tale concerning the things that have influenced me and my work, so I hope you'll join me in a couple of weeks at dansmonsters.podbean.com. You can catch me on most podcatchers like Apple and Spotify, etc. And if you'd like to leave a review, it would be very much appreciated. I'll put all the links in the description of this podcast, etc. But keep your eye on my socials for updates. Well, Instagram, Dansmonsters. I don't have Twitter or Facecrook or anything like that. You can also check out my latest updates at dansmonsters.substack.com, because that's what everybody's got now. And you can check out the website dansmonsters.com. There's a theme running here. You can also support me if you feel you wish to at ko-fi.com/dansmonsters. If you want to see me make stuff, like model making and sculpting and drawing and painting and my usual ramblings, you can go to youtube.com, The Monster Bomb Club, and come and see my hands covered in ink and clay. And if you want to see the back catalogue of book reviews that I've done so far, you can check out libraryofdoom.medium.com. Now, most importantly, a big massive shout out to the awesome, spectacular and wonderful electronic warehouse that is Myths and Monsters for letting me use the tracks from his epic album Cecilia, which I think is how you pronounce it. I may have got that wrong. You can check him out on Instagram, myths_and_monsters, but more importantly, check out mythsandmonsters.bandcamp.com. It's magnificent stuff. Have a listen, buy some stuff. Not sponsored in any way, but my early morning coffee is supplied by Black Worship Coffee. Go check them out. And my late evening beer is generally supplied by Black Iris Brewery. Great beer. Check them out as well. Okay, guys, I'll be back again in a couple of weeks, like I said. In the meantime, hang around for closing time and have a listen to the epic tunes of Myths and Monsters. See you again soon. Bye!